All right, so get ready because we're diving deep into the world of idioms today.
Yeah, those quirky sayings that don't always mean what the words literally say.
Exactly. And you know what? Mastering them can make your English sound so much more natural.
More fluent, too.
And guess what we're doing today?
We're going to explore their opposites.
Like a 2-for-1 deal on vocabulary.
I love that. 2-for-1, that's right.
You provided us with 20 idiom opposites, and I am so ready to unlock these secrets.
Let's get started then.
All right, so first up we have having your head in the clouds.
Ah, yes, versus having your feet on the ground.
Classic pair, right?
It's interesting how that reflects cultural values,
Yeah.
Like in many Western cultures,
Yeah.
being grounded and practical is seen as a good thing.
Right, practical, down to earth.
But that emphasis on feet on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
it could sometimes stifle creativity,
Yeah,
stifle imagination.
it's true.
What do you think?
Well, I was just thinking maybe those head in the cloud folks are the ones coming up with the really innovative ideas, the one in a million ideas.
Absolutely, you're totally right.
I mean, we were just talking about that, one in a million.
And it's opposite a dime a dozen.
Right,
I love how these idioms describe both people and objects.
right.
Although we don't usually call people a dime a dozen, do we?
That's true, that's true. We do say one in a million for people.
Maybe deep down we all want to believe that everyone has unique value.
Yeah, that's a good point, but, you know, even if something is common or a dime a dozen, it can still cost an arm and a leg these days.
Oh, you're telling me that's so true.
Prices are crazy.
It really paints a vivid picture, that idiom, doesn't it?
It does.
Costs an arm and a leg, like you had to give up a limb to afford it.
I know, I know.
But then, of course, the opposite is true, too. Finding something that costs next to nothing.
Yes,
That dirt cheap find feels like a victory.
that's the best. I love when that happens.
Like you won, you outsmarted the system.
It's so satisfying.
It is.
You know, that actually reminds me of that example in the lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Comparing the unique handmade vase to the mass-produced one.
I see where you're going with this.
It's like to take it easy on someone versus to be hard on someone.
Okay.
Sometimes you really need to take it easy to nurture something special,
Right.
like that beautiful vase,
Mm,
or even, a person's talent.
that's a really insightful connection you made there.
Thanks.
Being hard on someone all the time, I mean, it might not help them reach their full potential.
No, not at all.
It's like that example we had with the coach being patient with the young player.
Right?
Sometimes a gentler approach can really help things flourish.
Absolutely. But then again, there are definitely times when love is necessary.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
It all depends.
Like everything, context is key.
Exactly. Okay, so this next pair.
Hit me with it.
This is where we get into some deeper territory.
Ooh, deeper territory.
Turn the other cheek versus an eye for an eye.
Now, those aren't just about personal interactions, are they?
No, I think they tap into much bigger questions about justice.
Yeah, about how we respond to conflict as a society.
Big picture stuff.
They really do represent two very different philosophies, don't they?
They do.
Turning the other cheek suggests a willingness to forgive, to move on,
Right.
while an eye for an eye seeks, well, retribution,
Yeah.
seeks balance, or at least tries to.
It makes you wonder, is true justice even achievable through retaliation?
That is the question, isn't it?
Or does it just perpetuate a cycle?
It's a heavy question, for sure.
It is, and I'm curious, do you think turning the other cheek is always the right approach?
That's tough to say.
Or are there times when an eye for an eye feels more justified?
I think maybe it's less about choosing a side
Yeah,
and more about finding a balanced approach.
okay.
One that promotes fairness and resolution, regardless of the situation.
That makes sense. It's like those situations where maybe giving up on holding someone accountable
Right.
would be easier than sticking with it
Oh, interesting.
and demanding better treatment.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Oh, speaking of giving up,
Okay.
that reminds me of the next idiom pair. This one really tackles that theme of perseverance.
Oh, tell me.
Give up versus stick with it.
Ah, resilience, determination.
Exactly. And we see this in the lessons examples too, like giving up a bad habit,
Uh-huh.
like smoking or sticking with learning the piano.
Both of those require a conscious decision to either surrender or persevere.
And sometimes it feels like those decisions are happening every day, even multiple times a day.
Oh, tell me about it.
Like hitting the snooze button.
Ah, the snooze button.
The classic dilemma, do I give up and stay in bed?
Right.
Or do I stick with it and become an early bird like you?
Well, I think some of us are just wired to be early birds.
That's true.
While others, well, they thrive as night owls.
It's all about knowing yourself, right?
Absolutely. Working with your natural rhythms, not against them.
So true. But even the most dedicated early bird can feel like they have time on their hands 1 minute
Yeah.
and then be totally short on time the next.
It's the paradox of modern life, isn't it?
It is.
We're constantly trying to manage our time,
I know.
squeezing in as much as we can.
It's true. It's like that example from the lesson about losing your job.
Oh, yeah.
One day you have all the time in the world.
Right.
The next you're juggling multiple
Just
projects
feeling the pressure.
and feeling
Right.
completely overwhelmed.
Sometimes I feel like I'm under the weather just thinking about my to-do list.
I know. I feel that.
Well, hopefully you're more often feeling fit as a fiddle than under the weather.
Oh, definitely.
Speaking of fit as a fiddle,
Yeah.
did you know that idiom has nothing to do with the musical instrument?
Really?
Fit, in that context, is an older usage. It means suitable or appropriate.
Oh, wow.
So fit as a fiddle originally meant something like well-suited,
Oh, interesting.
or in good working order, just like a well-made fiddle would be.
That's fascinating. It's like a little history lesson tucked inside an idiom.
I love when that happens.
Me too. Okay, are you ready to tackle a few more?
Let's do it.
We are on top of this deep dive. I'm feeling good.
Awesome. Let's keep going. We've got a lot more ground to cover. We were just talking about being on top of this deep dive.
Right?
And it got me thinking about another idiom pair.
Okay.
It's on top of something versus behind on something.
Oh, yeah.
These really get at our ability to manage,
Yeah.
tasks and responsibilities.
Absolutely. I mean, on top of something.
Mm-hmm.
That's that feeling of, having a handle on things. Like you're the captain steering the ship,
In control.
and then there's behind on something. That sinking feeling,
Yeah.
deadlines late.
Just piling up.
I know. It's like a list, comparing being on top of your homework
Yeah.
versus being behind on payments.
One brings a sense of accomplishment.
Right.
The other, well, a bit of stress.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes when those deadlines are approaching,
Mm-hmm.
it's so easy to want to cut corners.
Oh, yeah, just to get things done.
But then again, maybe dotting your I's and crossing your T's is what leads to those truly great results.
Right, right.
What do you think? Is there a time and a place for both?
I think it depends on the situation.
Okay.
Sometimes a quick and dirty solution, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Other times, well,
You need that precision.
attention to detail is crucial.
It's like in that lesson, rushing through a recipe versus really meticulously crafting a presentation.
Exactly. The stakes are different, so your approach has to be different too.
It's all about context.
Context is key.
Exactly. But whether we're, cutting corners or dotting our I's, I think we can both agree.
On what?
Communication is key.
Oh, absolutely.
And that brings us to our next pair.
Ooh, let's hear it.
To lay one's cards on the table
Okay.
versus to beat around the bush.
Transparency versus evasion.
Ooh, I like that.
So laying your cards on the table, that's about honesty,
Mm-hmm.
directness,
Right. No hidden agendas,
just putting it all out there.
clear communication, and it can feel really liberating.
It can't like a weight lifted off your
But
shoulders.
you're finally speaking your truth.
Yeah.
No more sugarcoating.
No more tiptoeing around the issue.
But then there's beating around the bush,
Uh,
which, let's be honest, can be so frustrating.
it is.
It's like you're trying to have a conversation through this maze of hedges
I know, never quite getting to the point.
and never getting to the heart of the matter.
And, sometimes that indirect approach, it can be intentional,
I guess.
a way of avoiding confrontation,
Right.
or delivering bad news gently.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But more often than not,
Mm-hmm.
clear, direct communication, that's the way to go.
I think so, too. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Oh, yeah.
The initial sting is there, but then it's over and done with.
Exactly. No more lingering pain.
Okay, speaking of which,
Yeah.
that actually reminds me of another idiom pair
Okay, which one?
that tackles that theme of, facing the unpleasant
Ooh.
to bite the bullet
Okay.
versus to drag one's feet.
And so human, isn't it?
What's
Avoiding discomfort, like fighting the bullet, accepting the inevitable,
Mhm.
facing the challenge head on,
Even though it might be tough.
even though it might be tough.
It's like that moment of decision,
Yeah.
Do I procrastinate? Do I let this task loom over me?
I hate that feeling.
Or do I just bite the bullet and get it over with?
It takes courage, but that feeling of relief afterward, so
Oh,
what?
it's the best. And then the opposite, of course, dragging one's feet.
Oh, the procrastination.
We all do it.
We put things off, hoping they'll just magically disappear.
They never do, though.
Rarely.
And while some things, maybe they are worth putting off,
Yeah,
others are just better tackled head on.
I agree.
Like imagine you're on the edge of your seat waiting for something exciting,
Okay, yeah.
but you're dragging your feet, getting ready.
Oh, no.
You might miss the whole thing.
That's a great example.
Being on the edge of your seat, that's pure anticipation.
Completely engrossed.
The opposite, being bored to tears.
Totally. You're practically begging for a distraction.
It's funny, how these idiom pairs often reflect those two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you're between a rock and a hard place,
I hate when that happens.
facing a tough decision, no easy answers.
And then other times,
You're lucky enough to have the best of both
the
worlds,
best of both worlds, the dream.
enjoying those benefits benefits of two seemingly incompatible situations.
That balance of life, the ups and downs, the challenges and the triumphs.
And sometimes I think the best we can do
Yeah.
is just go with the flow.
Just go with the flow.
Trust that things will work out.
Embrace change, be adaptable.
Exactly, like riding the wave instead of fighting against the current.
I love that analogy.
But then on the flip side, being stuck in a rut
That can feel like you're stuck in quicksand, sinking deeper with each passing day.
and getting out of that rut,
Yeah.
that often requires us to kind of take the bull by the
Take
horns,
the bull by the horns.
be proactive, seize control,
It's the opposite of passively, letting things run their course.
and hoping for the best. Sometimes you got to take charge.
Sometimes you got to take charge.
Exactly. And that brings us to our final pair for today.
Bring it on.
To jump to conclusions
Okay.
versus to get the facts straight.
Ooh, in a world of information overload, this one feels especially relevant, doesn't it?
It does. Jumping to conclusions can lead to so many misunderstandings.
Misjudgments, too.
It's like building a house on a foundation of assumptions.
Oh, I like that. It's bound to crumble.
Whereas, getting the facts straight,
Yes.
that's about due diligence.
Taking the time.
Gathering evidence, considering all sides of the story before forming an opinion.
Being a critical thinker.
Not just a passive consumer of information. Wow, it's like we've been on this mental obstacle course.
I know, right? Navigating all these approaches to life's little challenges.
From fighting the bullet,
to dragging our feet.
going with the flow.
Or taking the bull by the horns.
So many choices.
And don't forget getting the facts straight.
Oh yeah, before we jump to conclusions.
It's amazing how these idioms give us a glimpse into,
Into what?
how we think, how we react to the world.
It's true. It's like each pair is like a fork in the road.
I like that. A fork in the road.
And understanding both options, it makes us more aware of the choices we're making every day.
You've got it. It's not about saying one idiom is always better.
Right.
It's about, recognizing those nuances and
Yeah.
choosing the approach that works best in that moment.
It's all about context.
Context is king.
And now you have this whole arsenal of expressive phrases.
Ready to go?
It's like you've unlocked a secret levels of fluency.
Spice up your conversations.
Impress everyone with your colorful vocabulary.
And remember, language is always evolving.
It is.
So play with these idioms, experiment,
Yeah.
try them out in different contexts. Who knows? Maybe you'll even invent some of your own.
Oh, that's a great challenge.
It is.
In fact, here's one for you to ponder.
Okay.
What's the opposite of spill the beans? Let us know your ideas.
We'd love to hear them.
Until next time, happy idiom hunting.